Hello and happy Monday. We're back at it after a week vacation, Labor Day. Some of us took a break, some of us didn't, but either way, we took a break from here. So Monday Market 15, I haven't done this in a while. The 30-minute show that takes about 30 minutes.
15-minute show that takes 30 minutes.
Yeah, we screwed up. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot on my mind. So I want to welcome all of you. And most importantly, I want to welcome my co-host, the bright, the beautiful, the only, Ashlee Miller-Perkins.
Hello, everyone.
There she's back, everybody.
Woo-hoo.
You know, I really love these microphones. Right? Hi, Dora. How are you doing?
I like the microphone.
Dora's on right now.
Hey.
So we're here to talk about the Phoenix housing market. Lots of changes, lots of no changes, and some perspective, I think. Are you happy, Ms. Perkins?
Like right now? This very moment?
I guess you can say now.
I'm tired a little bit.
Ashlee doesn't need a nap, so if you didn't notice the title.
Power grid go out last night from the storm, and it was blazing hot and miserable in our house.
So it was so bad, she slept in her car.
I did. I literally
boy.
went and slept in my car because I was so hot and like miserable. I couldn't even cool myself down. So, but yeah.
That's where you take clothes off. But we won't talk about that here today. We're here to talk about the Phoenix housing market. So yeah, things are changing a little bit. So much to talk about and a lot of directions to go. And I think the basic bottom question people have is is it the right time to buy? Mm-hmm. Is it the right time to sell? There's so many things in each of those that's really dependent on your situation. But do you think it's the right time to buy? Because I have a lot of those questions.
I think it's always the right time to buy, as long as you're buying for a specific purpose. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is the psychology behind.
See, I'm not the only one.
blah, 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 blah. Home ownership. Is it making you happy?
Yeah. So we're going to that article?
Yeah, or stressed.
So we're going to that article today. So psychology of buying a house, is it key to happiness or is it a source of stress?
And I think that, we're all in charge of our own happiness and the decisions we make. So is it the right time to buy? I mean, I believe it's really relative to the individual person. Like for me right now, I mean, I would buy a second home right now for sure. I mean, yeah, interest rates are high, and we'll talk about that later. But I know, I think it states it in here. It talks about it being, a generational wealth, meaning you're investing in something long term. And we've discussed this before. Even though rates are high now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be an opportunity to refi and lower the rate, or there's options for a property.
I think it really comes down to what your goals are in your. And it really takes some forethought of what your immediate goals are. Short term, middle term, and long term. I mean, if you're buying a house for your family for the next 30 years, there's the right time to buy is whenever you're ready.
When it's right for you.
But if it's one of those short term investments, then it makes a difference. Are you looking to buy and hold? Are you looking to buy a house because Super Bowl is going to be here in about 4 or 5 months, right?
Or
February.
Holiday parties. Maybe you want to host Christmas at your house this year. There's so many psychological reasons behind a home purchase, but what I find is that there's this hedonic adaptation.
See, I'm not the only one today.
Blah, 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 blah. Where we get that increased euphoria and excitement from purchasing a home, and then once it's done, then we go back to this baseline. And we're like, okay, we've adapted. Now we're at our baseline. Is that really, this material object really that satisfying? And to me, it's not about the material object being satisfying. To me, it's about the long-term wealth of the property. So if you're looking to buy just to eventually stay there 2 to 3, 4 or 5 years, I think the average right now in Arizona is about 7 years.
That's about everywhere.
And leave, then maybe it's not right. But for me, to buy and hold, almost like the stock. You buy it, you hold it, because 30 years down the road, it's going to be paid off, and you can leave it, to whomever, or pull money out of it if you need it eventually. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do with the property.
Yeah, and bringing up the Super Bowl. So Mark says, mucho gusto, my name is Mark. We know that, Mark, because it says it on your name.
Hey, Mark.
Mr. Deardoll. It's been a long time, sir. But we have the Super Bowl coming. Phoenix, if you guys didn't know, Phoenix is the host of the Super Bowl this February. I think the Cardinals may make it, but I think I know reality will be that.
That game last night was treacherous.
If anybody watches the Cardinals.
I wanted to just cry.
The Cardinals are nothing but hope. Hope that we're actually going to win again.
Now, speaking of the Super Bowl, if you would have purchased a property in the West Valley around
Glendale, Yes.
what I mean,
Give it to me.
surprise,
yes.
even El Mirage. I mean, anywhere on that side, maybe not El Mirage, but
El Mirage is a little bit.
It's going to be very, very lucrative for those people who purchase.
And really, that's short term. So I had a friend of mine. He came up and we talked about purchasing a property. He actually bought one with his investment company that he just started, and he paid the tenant $4,000 to move out because they're trying to rehab it and get it ready for the Super Bowl in Glendale. I mean, he said literally it was about a mile away from the stadium. And is that a wise investment? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to be charging for rent. I mean, I think it's the 2 weeks before people are kind of ramping up. People will rent out a house and pay a premium price. I mean, if you're paying, I don't even know how much Super Bowl tickets are, like $2,000 for a ticket or whatever, then it's not too much of a stretch to pay $1,000 a night or $500 a night just to stay.
Not at all.
I mean, have you ever gone to the Balloon Festival in Albuquerque?
No, but that sounds awesome. I want to go.
It's coming up. It's at the beginning of October.
Oh.
How do you not know about the Balloon Festival?
I live in my own little world where I just look up real estate stats and hang out with my kids.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because the hotels around there, they're not. I mean, if you've been to Albuquerque, there's really nothing there until the Balloon Festival. But the hotels around there are roughly about $100 a night. But then when the Balloon Festival comes up, those things are ranging from like $300 to $500 a night, and you're like, wow, that's a huge increase. But it's only those 2 weekends out of the year. So the first weekend of October.
I'm trying to put it into perspective. So if I'm going to go to the Super Bowl and I'm going to get it's me and my husband and maybe our kids, we're going to have to get 2 beds, a big room, and it'll probably be around $500 a night, let's say. But then if I have friends with me and they come and we can rent a house for $800 a night, it's a win-win for everyone. Yeah. So now we rent it for a week. 800 times 7. Now, you are the homeowner. You're getting enough money to pay your mortgage probably for, 3 months.
I mean, that could very well be the case. But, when we're talking about short term and long term, somebody going into that investment, buying it to rent it out for a couple months, I mean, obviously he sees, some, benefit there. But as soon as the Super Bowl's over, is it February? I don't watch football.
Yeah, February 2nd, I think.
February something. I don't watch football. So right after, let's say March 1st, that house is just going right back down in value.
Yeah.
Because Glendale is a pretty tough market to really, it's a tough market.
They just need to market the house properly. So,
but anyway.
The stressors, I know that's just from when I purchased my home, I'm thinking okay, I had to get the pool resurfaced. There's so much obligation and responsibility. You can't just call your landlord and be like, hey, resurface the pool. Yeah. I need a new air conditioning. You have to actually do it yourself.
Well, and people are having buyer's remorse. When I bought my house in October late last year, I went in it knowing that I would have to do the roof and would have to do the air conditioner. Did not realize how much more extensive the work would be. And I've done some of the work myself. We were talking about it just before we went on. That AC unit, because again, we're in a supply issue, was roughly about $15,000.
What?
I had 2. It was 2 units. And I had to replace both of them. One was a top mounted one, and then the other one was on the side. But then the roof was another $12,000 because they had to pull up all the tiles and resurface everything and then put them back because there was a lot of roof leaks and we couldn't identify where they were coming from. But
oh my gosh,
knowing I was going to go in there and knowing I was going to pay $30, we're just under 100 right now.
Right.
After all the rehab and all the other things, we'd done a lot of work.
But we get so excited for almost this independent feeling, we have our own home and it's super cool and. You're proud of it, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to be independent anymore. I want the landlord to pay for to fix all this stuff. So then it's not a buyer's remorse, but it's there's just so much stress that comes with it. But then there's the happiness, and it's like a bipolar feeling. I love my house, I don't like my house. Well,
I think the stress really comes into when you have a problem. When we first got in there, started working on some of the plumbing, it broke one of the spigots from underneath the sink, and I had all of them replaced because I was just worried about it. And going in there, it's it breaks, and it's okay, the part itself is $10,
right?
Whatever. And then you find out there's other problems just because of that one thing. So me going in there thinking, okay, I call the plumber. It's going to be a couple $100. Let me take care of that. And then he comes back. Oh, it's going to be $1,600. You're like, For what? Can I see that invoice one more time? I think that's where the stress comes from the unknown anticipated repairs, one, and then the stress of the money that's going to take to do all that. It's not cheap.
When I was waiting to buy this house, it took us long time, like searching, and the boys and I lived in a townhome.
Yeah.
And it was cute. It was a cute townhome, and it was awesome because like anytime anything happened, if there was a bee nest outside, like of the townhome, like I would call them and they would fix it. Like if there was a leak, they would fix it. Now it's like, shit, who do I call? Like, who am I going to call? What's the best price? How many? And then you're like in this state of mind, like trying to negotiate, and are the contractors going to show up? And if they do a good job, and it's like, but then I remember like I worked really hard to have this home, create a home that is going to be generational wealth for my future and my kids' future. So you really have to remember your long-term goal.
Yeah.
Versus like, I just want to buy a house because my buddy's down the street and I want to keep up with the Joneses. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, the house I bought, Ashlee, you've been too, so, I bought it more for kind of the anticipation that we'd rent it out.
I love it. I
don't like the storage room in there. We have zero, like, storage room whatsoever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the amenities, just having the casita and then kind of the lake view, I mean, that to me screams like Airbnb in the future.
Yeah.
Because of those amenities. It's got a pool, too. But is it a long-term family home? Not really. I mean, if I'm constantly worried about...
it's like renting out or like retired people.
Basically, yeah. Well, it's 2 stories, so there's no retired anybody.
Oh.
But I could also rent out the casita, too, so it's got a casita on it, too. So there's a lot of things
that's a great investment. You could rent that out right now to supplement all the remodeling you're doing.
Have you gone on that app, Furnish Finder?
No? Okay,
so Furnish Finder, so anybody out there, Furnish Finder caters to doctors and nurses.
Oh, like traveling ones?
Yes. And so I get emails all the time. I signed up for that just to kind of dip my toes in the water, so to speak. Oh, and hi, Kim. We were talking about you today.
Hey. I can't see when people like
I can
from
see
my screen.
But, we got on that app at a suggestion, but knowing that I could be renting out that casita to like doctors and nurses who are on like a 6-month contract.
And it's being paid by their companies. My dad is was a traveling nurse. And one time sorry, not to cut you off, but one time he was staying with me, they actually he rented a room out of my house and they paid me because I was the renter, even though I was his daughter, but they didn't know I was his daughter. But it was really cool. So it's guaranteed that you're going to get paid.
So download that Furnish Finder app. If you have because they do allow for you to rent out your rooms, but I think you'll have a harder time trying to rent out a room that, because obviously if you're a person, you're a quasi-professional, you don't want to necessarily move in with a family unless you know them, but it's just my kind of perspective. If you have a separated unit, if you have a separated room with its own entrance, I think you're golden all day.
Yours is perfect for it, like literally perfect. And then when they're not working, they can have their little canoe or
go fish,
paddleboard.
You see all these people that come up to next to my house and park right in front, and you're like, what the hell are they doing out there? And then they come and fish.
There's actually fish in there?
Yeah, people fish in there.
Like, they're not eating it.
I don't know what they do with it. I don't want to know. The blue water throws you off.
Yeah, no, I'll pass on that. But they can paddleboard.
But no. So as far as like investment goes, really what you want to do, long term, short term, that's really trying to gauge that for yourself, where that investment money goes to. Because right now, I think if you're financially minded, you're worried about where to park your money as far as assets go. No asset is safe. No stocks, bonds are fluctuating like crazy. There's really nowhere to place your money for it to grow, at least not in this environment. So other than cash, if you follow the dollar is significantly strong. Because I was talking to Violet, we were talking about going to Italy this year, and she wants to go because the euro and the dollar are the same price. It's 1 for 1 basically.
Yeah.
So if you've ever gone to Europe, it's usually the last time I went was a few years ago, and it was 1.5 euros to each dollar. So imagine if you buy a dress here for $100, it's 150 over there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's more expensive. So right now it's basically 1 for 1. So,
good time to go.
Where are you parking your money is really the question.
Well, I mean, I'm obviously a true believer. You should park your money in real estate and land. We're not making more of it, and it's not going away.
Correct.
But be very conscientious of when you do purchase a home to have at least $5 to $10 grand in what you would call like a homeownership fund or repair fund or oh shit fund. You know what I mean? Because there's like shit's gonna happen.
You have a no shit fund?
I did because I already had to use my oh shit fund.
No.
So now I'm like shit. Now I got to rebuild my oh shit fund.
Well, that's why I think people are scared, is that inflationary environment. Right now, we're looking at inflationary environment. We're looking at more layoffs coming next year. So people, essentially buyers are kind of squeamish and a little bit scared about doing that. But if you own your home, you can rent it. You know, you can rent it with other roommates. You know, and that's the one trend I am starting to see is people moving in on rentals, like double families and other situations where they're trying to help each other out.
Yeah, that's like my brother lives with me.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have much room. He shares a room with one of the boys in a bunk bed.
Yeah.
But he doesn't give a shit. And it's nice because, like, he grocery shops and runs errands. And, like, the pool was jacked up today. I didn't even have to call a pool guy. He just fixed it himself for me. Yeah. And I guess for us because he swims in it more with the dogs. But it's, like, having that family in one space. It's before I feel like we would, like, judge people. Like, oh, well, your brother lives with you. Or, oh, you live with so-and-so. And it's like, no, we're actually smart. Like, he lives in the house, pays a portion of the mortgage, does chores. Yeah. That's pretty genius to me.
I think the learning lesson with that, too, is make sure you like who moves into there.
Yeah. Well,
and they're willing to leave when you're
We're not talking about, like, the snarky mother-in-law or, like, you know, different things like that. But
well, that's why buying a house with a casita is most important. Like, go to your room.
Situation is actually perfect. So despite the fact that you had to put like $90,000 into it, you will eventually make that up by renting it out.
It was 90,000. Yes, I didn't want to say it was under 100.
Under 100.
It's still going, honestly, and I've gone and because I have gone to YouTube University. It's not really a university, but you watch enough YouTube videos and you experiment a lot. You know, a lot of my exposure to woodwork is from my dad, but you know, taking that precedent and just doing stuff for myself. I think I'm going to end up doing my staircases by myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I have played around with some wood. The only thing I'm looking at right now is the staining and then sealing of the wood itself. You know, I'm trying to explore what colors and if it's going to match and what we're going to do with that. But I mean, doing a lot of the work yourself saves so much more money. I did all the floor myself so far.
And that makes such a big deal. And also what's really cool is if you are crafty, and if you're not, you can YouTube it, is with purchasing a home that might need some fix, like updates or anything like that. For instance, like my baseboards. Well, I gutted my house, kind of like what you did, right? You gutted it, started over. I was like, man, I have some friends that that's their job. They remodel, they're contractors in this. And I just picked them up. I'm like, hey, do you have any extra paint, baseboard? Like, I would just start asking people and kind of for a handout, because you know what they do? It ends up in a storage shed or in the side of the house or dumped, or because people have already bought the material and they use the material, and what's left over, like, what are they going to do with it? So I started calling people. I got tile, baseboards, paint. What else did we get? There's a few like other small like trinky things, but just investing in your own time to learn on how to do things and asking for some resources, you're going to save yourself. I mean, I don't know. I think I probably saved like $20,000 just by doing that. And
I got some exciting news for you, not for everybody here. The Phoenix Toolbox. Once we're off the show, I got to tell you about that. Remind me of that.
Yeah. Oh, you can borrow tools
for nonprofits, though. That's the only thing. Not here at the show, or so if you own a nonprofit, Phoenix Toolbox here in Tempe. I should say Phoenix, but it's close to Tempe. They do tool rentals like pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's so much to be said, but it's for nonprofits mostly. But I know Ashlee go like batshit crazy when it comes to that.
But you can rent tools, and that's another thing. Like, I don't have this specific thing. Go to Home Depot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I rented, when I did my island, I rented a belt sander. Like,
man, we should have had a picture of that island. You did really good.
Yeah, we don't have it on there. Maybe we'll have to post it in the comments. But I rented it, I think, for 2 days because you only get it for so many hours, and then it trickles over, even though you don't really have it for the full 2 days. But it was like, I don't know, $20. And you bought the sanding, belt himself, like, to put on there. But completely worth it. So if you think that you can't do things so you don't have the tools, like,
there's resources.
There's so many resources, but we don't think that way because we're stressed, or like the psychology behind owning a home. You freak out.
Or make friends with Mexicans. I mean, that's
I mean,
that's why Ashlee's my
we're
friend.
friends. Jinx.
Ashley is my best friend. She's like, hey, I ran out of a belt sander. Do you happen to have a belt sander available?
I mean, like, well, and so if we want to,
Just
we
kidding.
can transition kind of into the interest rate. So I think that's freaking people out right now.
Oh, that was a good transition.
Yeah.
Let's talk about belt sanders too.
Well, I'm just
Interesting.
saying,
Let me
as
go
far
back
as like, saving money, like,
Yeah. So right now people are buying down their rates because right now, if you look at the 30-year fix on a $400,000 home, 7.5% or 6.5% roughly. I did have a buyer. We are closing on their house in about through 2.5 weeks. Their rate after he bought down the rate was 4.5. So there's still opportunities out there if you have a little bit extra money to buy down the rate. It's not a horrible situation, but looking at 6.5 to 6.7% on a 5% down $400,000 house is pretty bleh right now.
But with that being said, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh shit.
Is here are your options, right? So you have, let's just say you have $30,000 extra saved in your savings account, and the rate's at 6.7, and to buy it down to 4.5, I don't know how much that would cost. Would you, in your opinion, would you buy down the rate and basically like cash out yourself so you're not going to have any liquid?
My dad.
Or would you take the higher interest rate, keep your cash, store it, and then when interest rates drop down, refinance it? Because you'll always have like that $30,000.
That's a good question.
You'll have. Yeah. And you'll be able to use it. So if, shit hits the fan or you need a new freaking air conditioning, like versus like, oh, well, I got a lower interest rate, my mortgage payment's lower. Well, great. That's not going to give you $15,000 liquid cash to fix something.
Correct,
so kind of like figuring that out. I would take the higher interest rate.
Well, and that's really a hard one to answer. So I'll answer based off of my circumstance. So when we bought our house in October, we put 10% down.
Okay.
With the anticipation that we would have to do a lot of repairs to that house so that in 6 months we can do take out the PMI. So if we do 10%, so roughly we put $50,000 down. So if we put about 50,000, I was only thinking 50. We're way beyond 50,000. So if we put another $50,000 into the house, we can charge off the PMI and make it 80% loan to value at that point. We're not quite there yet because of supply issues, labor, and labor meaning me. I'm not always available because I am Hispanic, but I do not work, like a Mexican does. I'm only available on Sundays to do some of the repairs, but we're not quite there yet. And but anyway, so which road would I go? In that case, I put a little bit more money in on the loan itself, so the anticipation I could take PMI off in about 6 months. So I had some liquid cash. Could we have put 20% down? Absolutely, but the goal was to have the value of the house go up as we're putting money in, investing in it. Depends on the scenario. So having liquid cash will offset some of the concerns in like this recession environment. If you get laid off, you'll have some money, discretionary money to spend. Your mortgage payment will be higher, but you'll have the cash to kind of offset some stuff and pay down some stuff or buy things that you need to. But if you put all your money into the house and it's a long-term situation, if you're going to be there, if the plan is to be there 30 years, sure, why not put it in the house and buy down the rate? But if the plan is only going to be there that you're buying it for the Super Bowl and you're gonna turn it in March, probably keep as much cash as possible and put as little as money into it as you can.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you want to do. So that's a hard question to answer because there's so many variables to it.
The psychology of buying a home. Like, what are we gonna do?
Did that answer make you happy? That's the psychology of this today's show.
Whatever makes you happy.
Huh? Why do you get start that way? There's a lot of things that make me happy. It has nothing to do with the house.
No.
I'll leave you to speculate what that could be.
I like that comment though. It has nothing to do with the house because we think that a lot of times buying a house is going to bring that joy because we have a home for our family. But your family, no matter where you are, like that's your happiness and that's your home. So if you associate having a home with it all together, like what I do, like I associate my home as like this is my family's home. This is like a legacy I'm leaving. It's very different than it's just a material object.
Yeah, I really think happiness is in hindsight at the end of the day. And it's really the memories you make with the people around you. I've had a lot of good memories of you in this room and everything that we've done, and that makes me happy. A lot more so than anything else we've done.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it too. So the Fed increase interest rates. Are they going up? Are they going down? They're probably going up. So everybody talks about the federal funds rate. So if you're a Fed watcher and you watch all those headlines regarding, is the interest rate going to go up? So the Fed's fund rate doesn't directly affect mortgage rates. Right. It affects banks and how they exchange those rates. But is the Fed going to increase rates in September, which we're about due for a new Fed meeting? Mm-hmm. What do you think, based on this chart?
I actually think, honestly, the rates are going to go down. You said based on this chart. I'm doing it based on
heart, based on hope.
My
hope is not a strategy.
It is not a strategy. I feel that they have to lower them just a little bit. I mean, look at our homes. Like since March, it's gone down 17%. Like home prices, like the value.
Yeah, but inflation's still high. And so people are putting stuff on credit cards. It's not just about mortgages.
I know.
So, but the federal funds rate does affect, the ability to borrow money.
They need to just give us all a freaking break.
So if you notice, yes, I do agree that. So if you notice the 2-year treasury is the orange line and the federal funds rate tends to follow the 2-year treasury. So if you're worried about the exchange rate or the exchange between banks and interest rates that are charged between the negotiation of money, follow the 2-year treasury.
It looks like it's, look right. See that little orange thing at the very top? It looks like it's about to go down.
Well, the federal funds rate has to catch up with it first. So if you notice, look at the blue line, how it follows along the trajectory of the orange. The orange is the 2-year treasury. The blue is the federal funds, and it's got to catch up. It's got to catch up by a lot, by about 10 more %. So interest rates are going to potentially go a little bit higher if you're concerned about interest rates. And this is the short term. So if things, banks and lenders still have to originate loans. So market rates are a little bit different than the federal funds rate. Federal fund rate is going to be charging more. So look at your credit card statements. If you are paying 13% interest on your card, it's a variable rate. You might be paying 15, 17% now. So, but that impacts your money. So if you're putting stuff on credit, it's going to be less money for other things like a house, a down payment on a house, or even the mortgage payment. So it affects everything else, and the Fed has to get a control of inflation.
So here's a question for you regarding this. Now, you being a real estate agent, you have clients who may have gotten approved, let's say 30 days ago, at 6.5% for a $500,000 house. Now, the rates are going up. If they didn't lock it in, you have to pay to lock, and the interest rate goes up, that means the value of the home that they can purchase goes down. How are you dealing with your clients and the psychology of that?
It has to make sense. So if they feel good about their industry, where they're at. I mean, most of the time people buy houses because they need a place to live. Mm-hmm. And the secondary, question is like, can I afford it? Can I make that payment? Can I make it comfortably? Is that payment worth it? Is that payment worth going to rent closer to town or buy something a little bit cheaper out of town?
Do you feel like
somebody question.
So with them, are you like, okay, the rates are going to go up, just pick a house? I mean, not exactly like that, but do you kind of encourage them to like, hey guys, look, this is the trajectory of the interest rates, and maybe this house is not perfect. You can DIY a few things. I think this is a good, obviously you can't tell them it's a good decision, but do you do any of that cheerleading, encouraging, coaching?
I keep them well informed. I mean, that's the best I can do. People do kind of leverage off their decisions based off my emotions. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it just has to make sense to you, and I think people overall tend to put that decision on somebody else, and everything in life, because they don't want to come back a year later and say, oh, well, you told me it was going to be a good market. And I'm like, well, no, I didn't. I just said, this is where you're at. But in order to assert blame when things don't go right to something, but then they fully accept it if it was the right decision.
Oh, of course. Right?
It's like, oh yeah, I decided back there. It was my decision but if shit goes wrong, it's like, well, Robert told me. It was like, he's the agent, he's the expert. And honestly, I don't know right now, with the way things are going. And I guess we can pull up those charts to kind of surmise today's show.
Yeah.
If you look at our inventory rates right now, inventory is increasing and it's coming to kind of a head. Let me get my face out of there.
Get your face out of there.
So inventory right now is just a little over a 3 month supply, and that's kind of, like I said, coming to a head. We've been roughly about 3 months supply for the last couple of weeks, and it's not really getting any aggressively higher. It's not really shortfalling. And if you look at, years past, right now we come to a head about November, as we get into November, and just stay stagnant, and then all of a sudden, once we get into January, we jump up a little bit.
So we're September 2020. So go to September 2021.
Oh, are you sure? 'Cause September 21 sucked. It's just a weird thing to kind of compare.
Yeah, I find it so interesting.
So September
last year.
And last year was a little less than half a month supply. The year before was about a half a month supply. The year before that was the year, the COVID kind of took precedent. That was, I think I just did that one.
Yeah.
So it's there.
Very intriguing. It's
I would compare it to 2019 as we kind of get back into a normal market cycle. And you can kind of see here in September of 2019, we're at about a 1 and a month half supply. And you kind of see, just by looking at the chart, we kind of like flatlined a little bit. Then we picked back up in January. So really looking at the market, we won't understand a clear trajectory until we get to January. Because right now, this September number this year is so obscure. But then again, the 2 years prior to that have been so obscure. So it's really hard to gauge where the direction of this market's going to go. And people lean on me like, hey, where's the market going? Hey, people have told me to hold off and not buy until next year. I'm like, no, I don't know if anything's going to get better.
So many people told me that, and I want to punch them in the face. Thank God I didn't listen to them.
Well, yeah. And again, it just has to make sense for you. And as we continue on, I'll go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question about that real quick? Does that include any of the new builds that are for sale, because they're not necessarily like on the MLS?
This is resale. This isn't
okay.
This isn't new contract.
Because I've been noticing a ton, especially on the west side, new developments that there's no way that with that number. So there's definitely more availability, but that's for the new builds. And
new builds are actually, I think, are starting to catch up with supply chain issues. Less people are buying new builds because they don't know. Because the hard part about buying a new build is not knowing what your rate's going to be until like 30 days before you close. And even then, so I was at a new construction, KB Homes in West Buckeye.
Wow, yeah.
And they're basically saying that they have a couple homes ready to go, ready for close, but they're waiting on one item. One of them was a window. Some of them were like waiting on sets of windows to come in, and once those windows were fulfilled, they would be able to close. But they'd been waiting on those windows for about 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's I think right now we're starting to see supply chain issues being rectified a bit, just because people aren't buying as quickly. And it won't be until next year we really know. I mean, I saw a new build that wasn't even adding like window screens because they were trying to save money on some of the certain aspects of building. So
mind-blowing.
It's hard to gauge where the market's going to be at. But what I do know is where it's at today. And kind of have a fair projection of where the market's going to be a month from now. And right now we're looking at a balanced market. Remember, we've been following the dashboard for months now, and we're at a yellow market indicator. So the yellow means a balanced market between buyer and seller. Supply index, we're still short supply, so you're still seeing those prices kind of stay where they're at. They're still decreasing. The ones that I think are decreasing their prices are the people that have to sell, have to move. Right. But according to this chart, according to the numbers, we're sustaining our prices. But also because the buyer index, red means that there'll be less buyers. So the buyer index is pulling back, but it's being elevated by short supply. So we're right, how next year is going to pan out, where we're going to go next year. It's really hard to predict because prices may stabilize as supply is still low and buyers pull back. So, I mean, we're no better than we were probably 2 or 3 months ago.
I'm excited to see what January brings. Like, it's going to be very intriguing.
I don't know. I mean, with the Cardinals coming in, it'll get a lot of interest. Or not Cardinals, the Super Bowl coming in, there'll be a lot of interest.
Yes, Cardinals. We want them.
Are you a Cardinals fan?
I am.
I'm not. I'm a non-football fan, so I don't really care who's going to be in that Super Bowl. But as far as what next year brings, it's really hard to predict. This is unprecedented. The last 2 years have been unpredictable. This year will be just equally unpredictable until those supply chain issues are resolved. Until if we are in a recession, who knows where jobs are going to be? You know, if those pull back, then our whole economy is going to be whatever. You know, we're running out of food. Basically, we're running out of water. We're about to have rolling blackouts in basically every Southwest state. You know, so who knows what next year is going to bring?
Yeah, last night sucked.
It was really rainy last night.
But the good news is, and I'll tell you guys this, is I have these candles called Luminaire candles. You buy them off QVC. I know it's like sounds like an old lady thing, but they're done like they look like real flames and they're really bright, and you use a remote control with them. So, and I have them in every single room and bathroom. Yeah. And all you have to do is just press them on, and it's like the whole house just lit up. So it was like very like serene. The only thing was just blazing hot.
So have we discovered your happiness, Miss?
My happiness? My happiness is...
That's how we started the show.
Yeah.
And do you still need a nap? That's really the question.
I do. I'm so tired. But my happiness does lie within what most people would call just a material object. But the reason it lies there is because that is my home for my family. And we're all like, it's like the feeling of like our community. You know, like I said, my brother lives with us too. And it's, I don't know, just good... It's good energy, but there's also freaking stress because there's stupid shit that's always happening in the goddamn house. Sorry. I'm very aggressive right now, but it's like, so yeah, I mean, my happiness is there and it is going to come with stress, but I know the long-term goal of it. So I just kind of have to like get over it.
I think the stress of owning a home is equivalent to the worry and stress that you have every year. You got to either renegotiate your lease agreement or figure out a new place to go.
Yeah.
Because I hate moving.
Oh my gosh.
So true happiness, I think at the end of the day, we've already addressed that, is the family and the company you keep and the people you surround yourself with. And I am truly happy here in this space with Miss Miller Perkins being my partner on this show. Yeah. But what else have we learned today, Miss, as we wrap up?
What have we learned? Oh, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Just kidding.
Are you happy?
No, I think I honestly believe like the whole goal of this was to just educate people no matter what, whether it's interest rates, rising, home prices, stabilizing. You get to make your own decision. You get to choose your happiness.
I agree. And find the right people to surround yourself with who you can love and trust, and they will basically point you in the right direction. So as we wrap up today's show, I want to thank you, Miss Perkins, Miller Perkins, Ashlee. So many names, so many different meanings. I appreciate you. Thank you for always being here with me and making me happy on this show. So
thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you
next time.